Alright guys, this one's going out to all you teenagers out there at the moment that are suffering with GCSE stress and exam pressure. And one thing I've learned from counselling, not necessarily from just adult students or just working with teenagers, but I think in general, is that when human beings have got too much complexity, they kind of shut down. If it's too much, you can't make sense of it, and then you just don't do anything. And this is something that I've kind of seen quite a lot with teenagers that are in the middle of doing their GCSEs, because sometimes you get the school putting a lot of pressure on you, or parents maybe, or yourself, to do sort of 3 or 4 hours worth of revision per day after a long day at school. And that can be too much for some people. I mean, if you're academic or you enjoy study, then that's not going to be an issue for you. But if you're not, and you find it difficult, then it can really get you down. And this is also because you've got some teachers, I mean, you've got some brilliant teachers that are amazingly supportive and will help you as much as they possibly can. Then you have others that only are looking out for the fact that they want you to get good grades because it makes them look good. I mean, you get certain teachers, for example, where they kind of get their mid-term review and the school give them 2 sort of objectives, and one is you need to get better average grades in your class, but we're not going to give you any extra training to teach those students better. So then what do? They're just going to say, right, you need to do more revision to get your grades up, because I know that I'm not capable of teaching you properly, but you lot still need to get good grades. And then you might feel extra pressure from a teacher. You might also have a teacher that's got a lot going on in their personal life and is trying to juggle a hell of a lot of things outside of school with what's going on in school and still putting too much pressure on you. And these things are difficult for you to manage because you feel as though, well, I don't know what to do here because I'm being told I've got to do 2 hours revision by English, 2 hours by maths, 3 hours by science. How the hell am I going to cope? And that's where the complexity gets too much. And you end up thinking, well, I might as well just give up because I'm never going to be able to do what they're asking me to do. And so it becomes an insurmountable mountain that you cannot pass. Then you end up in the victim mentality of, oh my God, this is terrible. They're putting too much pressure on me. I can't cope. This sucks. And end up in pity mode. So these things are not good because they're not teaching you how to manage yourself in these situations. And that is very, very important. And so one thing that I think is useful is ignore the teachers. And the school would hate me for saying this, and so would some parents, but ignore the bloody teachers. If they're asking you to do 2 hours revision a day, they don't realise what reality is like for you. So therefore they're asking you to do something that they cannot even put themselves in your shoes and ask you to do reasonably. So ignore them. And what you need to do is kind of step back from that and think about, if I'm not going to get people that are supporting me, I need to learn how to support myself. I need to learn how to manage this myself. Rather than expecting someone else to come along and do it for me, I've got to figure out, what am I prepared to do? Now, all right, you might say, well, I'm not prepared to do anything. Okay, if you're not prepared to do anything, fine, don't do anything. But be prepared for not getting the results that you might want, and then take responsibility for it, because then you've learned something. You've learned that if you don't revise and you don't put the effort in, you don't pass the exam. That's a good lesson for life, because it might mean that next time something like that comes along, I don't know, like you've got a job interview, it really matters, you do it, you get the job, all right? So it's still valuable. Even if that's the only thing that you try, it's valuable because you've learned something about yourself from it, and that is good, all right? Next thing, if you do want to do a bit of revision but you don't know how much, first of all, think, right, where am I going next? Like, am I going to go to college? Am I going to get an apprenticeship? If you're in sixth form, am I going to go to uni? Am I going to get a job? What type of grades do I need for the courses that I want to do? Then you can look at how you can specifically target those grades first. So let's say you've got 20 days until you've got to do your exams. So if you was to say, right, for 20 days I'm going to do 20 minutes of revision for maths, that's going to mean that you've done 400 minutes worth of revision for maths before your maths exam. If you did 20 minutes of English a day, you've done 400 minutes worth of English. Now that is quite a lot. You know, it's not like, it's not as much as what the teachers would get you to do, but not forgetting that you've got teachers that will try and get you to do 2 hours because they want you to do well in their class to make them look good. Some of them care about you, don't get me wrong, because there are some awesome teachers out there, but there are also some that really put the pressure on kids and don't think about how that's going to actually impact you when you're in the middle of all this stuff with exams. So I think one of the main things to do then is to think, right, okay, so let's say you need maths and English because you want to be a mechanic. And they want you to know English so you can sort out the invoices and everything like that, and they want you to know maths because you need a bit of maths to work out some measurements and things like that. Focus on them. Half an hour a day on them. Forget science, forget geography. If you want to be a geologist or you want to be a scientist, study them later. But for now, you focus on the things that you know you want. You know, because don't get me wrong, like there's definitely value in doing 4 hours revision a day if you can do it. But what this is for the people that can't do that, or don't want to do that, or refuse to do that. Because too often I hear from teenagers, I can't cope with the amount of stuff I'm being given to do, so I'm doing nothing. And that is not a good solution, because in the meantime you don't learn how to manage yourself amongst that problem, because you just give up. And that's not teaching you anything for later on in life. So I would suggest, even if you can do 15 minutes a day of one subject, do it. Sit down and do it, because then you've done it. And then if you get you get a C in that subject and you get what you needed in that subject, then you can pat yourself on the back and say, well done, I know what I'm doing. And then as you get a bit older, you might find that you can put some more effort into things like that, you know? So really, ignore the teachers if they're putting too much pressure on you, because it'll only make things worse for you if you're that type of person. If you're a rebellious person and you've got a teacher putting too much pressure on you, then what's the next thing's going to happen is you're just going to think, well, I'm not doing it, so sod off. Only person that loses out then is you. I mean, all right, the teacher's average grades go down, but, you know, that's not your problem. What's your problem is what you're going to do for the next 5 years with no results, you know. So the second thing after that is to own that part, because let's face it, you've got some very well-off people, some very wealthy people in this world who didn't even finish school. So it's not the be-all and end-all. So that's another thing, you know, don't beat yourself too much, because you've still got the possibility of getting far in life even without results from school. I mean, a couple of years ago, the guy that won The Apprentice when he was 14, he dropped out of school, and he got 250 grand from Alan Sugar to go into business with him. So it's not the end of the world if you don't get them. So the point is, figure out a meaningful contribution that you can make, that you think that is acceptable, and that you know you will do. That's the important thing, because 10 minutes a day of what you've told yourself to do is better than a teacher telling you you've got to do 2 hours a day and you giving up because you cannot cope with the pressure that they're putting you under. So it's a very important thing to learn, because when you go to work, you might get a boss that's trying to put too much on you. You need to be able to manage that and say, you can't cope with it, this is what you can do. Don't just take it on, because people that do that end up signed off work with work-related stress, or end up depressed, suicidal, and God knows what else. So this is another way of saying to yourself that this point in your life is very, very useful to teach yourself how you can manage as a person when these things are difficult, and look at what you can actually do. Because if you're not focused on 8 lessons, trying to revise for 8 lessons, and you only think, well, I only need to do 3 because they're the 3 that I want at the moment, that's better than trying to revise for all 8 and then passing none. The school don't tell you this. They're not going to tell you this because it's not the way that they want you to think. But that doesn't tailor the individual needs of certain students that can't work that way. You may not be that way inclined. You might work with your hands and you forgot to take DT because at that point in your life you didn't realise you were good at it. You know, you might find that something else that you want to study, you need to sign up for later on in life and do an adult college course. You know, I was like 29 when I started doing counselling courses. Up until then I worked in the print for like, you know, however many years, and it was boring, it was crap, and I felt like I was wasting my life. I was looking around and I was thinking, all the people that are here, like there's people on machines that are the same machine I'm working on, and they're like 60, and I was like 25, and I'm thinking, shit, I've got 35 years of this, that ain't good. So I made a career change then. You know, my exam results weren't great. I didn't like school. I dropped out of college because it was boring. I did administration and business college, and that was the last thing that was interesting to me at that age. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to get anywhere in life if you do that. All right, so I'm not saying that that's an excuse to just give up and not try, because that as well isn't good. But if you do that, and then you're willing to accept the consequences and learn from where you did it, that's more valuable than trying hard at everything, beating yourself up every night because you're not doing enough, and then failing everything. Because what did you learn then, really? Apart from the fact that, well, you know, I can't take on the world. So those, to me, they've been useful. And that's the thing. It's not just like random advice, and I haven't done this video after working with 2 year 11 students. Look, this is good advice. This has worked for a lot of students. They've come back and have got the grades that they needed because they focused on the lessons that they want to achieve in, and not focused on what the school is telling them to do, which is just way beyond their capabilities at that point in time because they don't want to do it. Not only that, but you've got the fact that young people these days have got so many distractions. You know, I've worked with lads, for example, that have said, well, you know, yeah, I could get home and do revision, or I could smash my Ultimate Team out on FIFA, and then I've got more players to beat my mates at. So if I've got the choice of revision or playing FIFA, I'd much rather be playing FIFA. You've got that to contend with. That's a difficult thing, because who's not going to want to do that? It's like saying, you know, teachers don't like marking papers. It's boring. And yet they expect you to sit in school for 6 hours a day doing low-level clerical work and be happy about it. So this is a real problem that you have to face, and you've got to learn to manage that, because that's kind of like life. You know, when you're an adult, it's very easy to think, well, I'll lay in bed, or I'll go down a pub tonight and drink 17 pints and then not bother getting up in the morning. Same thing as getting in from school and not doing any revision because you'd rather play FIFA. You know, you've got to learn how to manage that. Do some revision, reward yourself with FIFA. You know, don't just get in, play FIFA for 6 hours and then think, oh crap, I should have revised. Do a little bit, you know. Don't do loads if you don't want to do loads, if you don't feel like you can, if you don't feel like it's something that's in you at the moment. Because, as I say, you're going to get a hell of a lot of people going, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. But you might not feel like you can. Yes, you're stronger than you think you are, 100%. But you might not be ready to quite learn that lesson yet. Don't make the failure of your GCSEs because you did nothing about it be the lesson that you learn. Learn it beforehand and just focus on what you think is possible and then push it. So if you did 10 minutes yesterday, great. Do 11 minutes today. Do 11 minutes tomorrow. Do 12 minutes a day after that. 12 minutes a day after that. Then 13. See how much you can build it up. Try it. Give it a go. Because you know, it's in you to do that. And the school don't teach you some of the things that are necessary for the attitude towards GCSEs, because they're too busy trying to get you to get the results that they want to make their school look good so that they get paid more. See you later.